thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Will the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for Wednesday, December 20th, 2017, please come to order? I'd like to start off the meeting, if anybody would like to join me by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. For the benefit of those who may or may not have participating in a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, our procedures are as follows. We will read the legal call of the meeting as published in the local newspapers. The applicant will be invited to come forward and present the case, explaining to the commission and others present what is being requested of the property. Comments of town agencies will be read for each application if there are any. There will be clarifying questions from the commissioners. Then there will be an opportunity for clarifying questions from the audience. First, those who wish to support the application may come forward, and second, those who oppose the application will be invited to come forward and express their opinion. As this is a public hearing and must be recorded, it's necessary for speakers to identify themselves by stating their name and address before addressing the commission. The applicant is then free to leave or remain for the balance of the public hearing and the regular meeting, at which time the commission will try to reach a decision on each application. Each applicant will be notified in writing to the decision of this commission and has a right to appeal to Superior Court if desired. Decisions of this meeting are available the day after the meeting by calling the Planning and Zoning Office at 203-453-8039 after 9 a.m. So seated this evening are the following members. We have Rich Meyer, Phil Johnson, Alan Brown, I'm Frank DeAndrea, Dick Wallace, Matthew Yorzinski. Our staff tonight is George Kroll. We have Lisa Piambino as our recording secretary, and the videographer this evening is Peter Schultz. So will the secretary read the legal notice, please?
Legal notice, Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission. Notice is hereby given that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on December 20th, 2017 at 7:30 p.m. at the Nathaniel B. Green Community Center, 32 Church Street, Guilford, Connecticut, in the Mononkatuk Room on the second floor for the following purpose. Rick Maynard, Peddler's Park Road, map 72, lot 13, zone R8. Site plan revision to build a 18-hole disc golf course on the 30-acre properties. Section 273-97. Copies of these applications are available for inspection in the office of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Town Hall South, 50 Boston Street, Guilford, Connecticut. At this hearing, persons may attend and be heard, and written communication will be received. Dated at this 28th day of November, 2017, Frank DeAndrea, Chairman.
Thank you. So with that, we will, you want to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that on the agenda that we move item 3 to be item 4 for the sake of speed for the people that are here for their second public hearing.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So we will open it up for the public hearings. This is New Haven Sportsman Club. You guys are up.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I'm Attorney John Corona for Langen, Corona, and Middlefield here for the applicant. We made a brief presentation at the last meeting. I don't believe there were any open questions. We did in the interim, though, have an as-built made of the building that is there so that we could confirm that the building complies with the yard requirements. I did submit that to the town. I have copies if that didn't make it to commission members. But it's the only additional information that I have to add this evening.
You guys got any other questions? Good. Everybody's good? Okay, does anybody from the public have a question? Anybody like to speak in favor? Anybody like to speak against? Hearing none?
Move to close this portion of the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brenda Gorman. Somebody.
Hello,
Hi.
I'm Brenda Gorman. I'm looking for a permit for an accessory apartment at 90 Wild Rose Avenue in Guilford.
this is your second hearing.
Correct.
Has anything changed since
No.
2 weeks ago?
Okay. Anybody have any questions at this point? Yep. Yes, it was. Good here. Anybody from the public like to comment, or actually ask a question first? Anybody like to speak in favor or against? Okay.
Motion to close?
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a CAM application we will look at. John Terudis.
Good evening, John Terudis, 52 Seaside Avenue, seeking approval to replace an existing shed with a slightly larger shed that is more conforming. We did apply to Boning's Zoning Board of Appeals, received approval of variance related to the coastal jurisdiction setback line, so.
So we got a couple things I'm sure we're gonna want to read. You guys want to read these in, or you want to ask any questions first? You want to read the stuff in the record?
Like one, I'll pass that around.
So, Rich,
Sir.
isn't there a letter you'd like to read here?
Oh, I would love to. It's from our friend Carol Zismansky at the Connecticut DEEP. And it is addressed to Kevin McGee, and it's about this site plan. And it first thanks us for referring this coastal site plan to their office, and speaks to the applicant proposing to build a 10 by 14 storage shed on the property outside of the flood zone AE12 and VE13. The larger shed replaces an existing 8 by 8 smaller shed in approximately the same location. No spot elevation information has been submitted. Although the shed is proposed to be located outside of the flood zones, the applicants may wish to anchor the shed as a precautionary measure so that it doesn't float away in case of a flood. Coastal resources present on or near the site include coastal hazard area of 12B13 tidal wetlands. The flag tidal wetlands are 2 foot 4 inches from nearest point on the shed. Guilford zoning regulations require 25-foot buffer from tidal wetlands, requiring a variance of over 22 feet. The existing required buffer is important because tidal wetlands can migrate landward over time. The tidal wetlands are highly productive and biologically diverse systems with many important functions that benefit the environment. The applicant should have no expectation that a permit can be secured in the future to either fill tidal wetlands or build a flood or erosion control structure. It appears that there is space on the lot to locate the enlarged shed at least 10 feet away from the tidal wetlands. Conclusion, we hope that these comments are helpful to the commission, and she closes out Carol Szymanski, Environmental Analyst 2 for the Office of Long Island Sound Programs, State of Connecticut.
You received that? Copy?
Sure.
Please read it.
This one's from Kevin McGee, our environmental planner, dated today, December 20th, 2017. Coastal Area Management Review, John Terudis and Paula DeVoe, 52 Seaside Avenue, Guilford, Connecticut. The applicant is proposing to install a 10 by 14-foot shed 4.5 feet from the edge of the tidal marsh in a FEMA zone AEEL 12. The construction of the shed 2 feet off the top of a swale and 4.5 feet from the tidal wetlands does not provide sufficient distance to protect the tidal wetlands from the construction activities of grading the area for the installation of a stone pad, installation of filtration trenches, and stockpiling of soil. It is important to note that with sea level rise causing tidal marshes to move further inland, the existing shed location in the future could potentially be located within the tidal wetlands, and any repairs to the shed could require the property owner to make an application to the Connecticut DEEP. On December 14th, I met with John Terudis and his property, at his property, to see the site constraints, since the site plan does not provide contour elevations or label the coastal resources. At the site visit, I discussed with Mr. Terudis the need to have the shed move further away from the tidal wetlands and showed him how it could be placed on the property and still meet with the sanitary setbacks. Attached are photographs showing the existing shed locations. In order to make ensure that the coastal resources are protected during and after the construction process, I recommend the following conditions of approval. 1, any material removed for the installation of the shed should be disposed of off-site. 2, an 18-inch wide by 18-inch deep stone infiltration trench should be installed around the perimeter of the shed to provide infiltration of stormwater as required by the coastal area management regulations to prevent soil erosion adjacent to the tidal wetlands. 3, stone should be placed under the shed to prevent erosion of soil. And 4, the shed should be moved at least 10 feet away from the wetlands. You seen this?
I've not seen that.
You okay with those?
I am okay with some of those. I agree with the gravel and the drip edge and the filtration trench around. Also, what's not mentioned here, but I think was mentioned in DEP, deep letter, was tie downs, which is fine. The property is a little unique in that the coastal lines are pretty much, one of the lines on one side you'll see on the map actually runs through the middle of the house. So I have some pretty tight constraints with the lines, and the existing walkway that comes off the driveway doesn't leave me a lot of room to come in a full 10 feet. So what I proposed was the existing shed, which is non-conforming, is 2.5 feet from the line. I would virtually double that, come out to 4.5 feet, and make a more conforming and actually a bit more aesthetically pleasing shed to the neighborhood. I'm also constrained by some of the septic lines, which I discussed with Mr. McKee. And really, if we come out 10 feet, we're going to be right on the edge of those septic lines.
So really, the one is number 4, you have the issue with the 10 feet away from the wetlands,
Correct.
and it's currently 2, and you're proposing you can get it to 4?
4.5.
4.5.
Point out that the variance was granted based on the 4.5 feet.
Correct.
Okay.
You were at ZBA on this, correct?
I'm sorry?
You did go to ZBA and zoning board of appeals?
Yes, last meeting, and I have their letter of approval there, if you like.
Does their decision name the hardship that this is?
It does not.
Says hardship or reason for decision.
This has no adverse impact on the comprehensive plan.
But that's not a hardship, is it?
I don't know whether it is or not. That's their finding.
So their hardship is that it has no adverse impact on our plan of coastal resilience.
Correct.
Who wrote that? Who?
I don't know whether they fashioned that wording themselves. I'm sure they did. I didn't attend the meeting, but they probably did.
Okay.
Oh, we have it.
Do we know what
In
the
the rec-
elevation is? At the
13. Didn't it say 13? No, elevation 12.
So it's not in a flood
It's-
zone?
It's,
Or it is?
That's what the DEP letter said. It's not in I think that's what it said.
Kevin says it's in an AEL 12.
If that's the
It's
case,
actually outside of the according to the map. If I see this girl.
Yeah, see, he's outside the flood zone.
here's the VE. And I'm not sure. So then this is definitely AE 12, but then
So this is the 12 line? Right. And then this is the setback.
Is the primary reason for replacing the shed just for extra space, or is the
Storage,
existing shed
this,
falling apart, or?
no, it's actually in good shape, but it's very small. it's 8.5 by 8. I can't fit any of my power equipment, my tractor in there, snow blower. So I don't know if any of you have the experience of snow blowing in the winter, but trudging through the snow, starting it up and getting it going. Our driveway kind of comes in here. I have some pictures. Comes into the front of the walkway. You can see here there's not a lot of room. I'm going to be coming in as it is, as proposed, another 2.5 feet with the shed. And then essentially the end of my septic line is right about here.
It's tight for that walkway.
It is, and I mean, realistically, if I were to move it right up against the walkway, I don't know if that presents an issue with the fire department, because there's been about 8 feet between the shed and the house.
So it's outside of the flood zone according to Carol.
George, is this subject to substantial improvement as new construction in the flood zone?
If it's outside the flood zone, I would say no, but I'm not really an expert in that. That would be a determination that would be made by the assistant engineer if and when a building permit application is made.
I would just say that, I live fairly close to that, and it's pretty low. And I would just double check the FEMA flood maps, because I think if it's actually in a flood zone, you might be subject to some more substantial construction for any buildings constructed in flood zone. And I think as a replacement, this would be considered new construction. So I would double check the flood zone, because you don't want to come back after the fact and try and fix it.
Maybe he does.
Well, I've had extensive discussion with Reggie Reed on this project, and my understanding was I did not have to apply to DEEP because of the location. We're outside of that flood zone and within that setback. I think the issue really is because we're within the 25 feet setback line from that coastal jurisdiction line. And that was the variance. Again,
Mr. Johnson's referring to
yes.
is the town's flood management ordinance that requires that if a building is improved beyond a certain level or above a certain level in the floodplain, then certain requirements are triggered that require that you elevate or protect the structure from potential flooding. And that the person who makes that determination under the town's ordinance is the assistant town engineer. When you make a building permit application, if you make a building permit application, then you should discuss with him what kind of improvements might be required pursuant to that, if any.
This is also new construction, it's not improvements.
Okay.
Right? I mean, it's a new building.
I would, yeah, it's a new building. I would bring in a different building and drop it down, yeah.
You guys got?
I guess, yeah.
I mean, if you could just make, I know we don't do contingencies, but, contingent upon this not being in a flood zone, or not. I mean, I guess if it is, you're going to be subject to it. If it's not, then you're not.
That'll be triggered by the building permit, right?
Yes. In theory.
In theory. We good? Questions from the public at this point? Anybody want to speak in favor? Oh, you got a question?
Can I make a comment?
Sure, we're at that point. Name and address for the record, though.
Todd Anderson.
And try, and if you got to come up to the mic, I'm sorry, sir. Yeah, you think you know the drill.
Yeah. Todd Anderson, Anderson Associates, 1054 Boston Post Road, Guilford, Connecticut. You guys were speaking of substantial improvements to a building. That has to do with a house per FEMA regulations. This is just a shed. It's a non-insurable item. It doesn't come under FEMA regulations. It does come under town regulations for flood. So the comment about it being strapped to the ground so it doesn't float away and harm a neighboring building, that does have some substance to it. but the matter of it being a more than 50% improvement on the property does not come into play because that is on the main structure, the house on the property. And I just wanted to clarify that for you.
Getting knowledge.
Is this
going to be construction? I don't know.
Just the building brought in. Subject to any grading and the stone underneath, et cetera.
Yes, we do. Any other questions or comments? All right. Somebody?
Motion to close.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I don't know if we do. Okay, and then we are on Rick Maynard and the Peddler's Park.
I'm going to move this map so you guys can see it. Can you see it all right? So, Peddler's Park, doesn't understand. Peddler's Park historically was a park back in the 60s and 70s. It was an area where there was a pickup softball field, a picnic area. There were special events held there, even Girl Scouts camped down there. Got let go over the years. This goes before my time here. And the Parks and Recreation Commission has put it in their 5-year capital plan for a number of years, putting it in as doing something to reclaim the park. We didn't know what at that point, but for a number of years it was in our 5-year capital budget to do something there. And when we saw the increase of interest in disc golf and the popularity in disc golf courses starting to rise up all over the state, there are about 26 courses in the state now. We held a disc golf tournament at Guilford Lakes Golf Course last November, just to try it out, a little 9-hole tournament. We had 80 people came to the tournament. A lot of them were Guilford residents, there were people from out of town, out of state. But we realized that, wow, this really is a popular sport. And so we looked at a couple of areas and we decided as a commission that this was the place to do it. It's an underutilized park. It is a trailhead to Westwoods, and we're thankful that there are trails going through there. But that's all there is now. It's no longer a softball field, no longer a picnic area. In fact, you can see remnants of, this is the current parking area. You can see remnants of the old paved road that went down to what we call the meadow, which I think that's where the softball field was at one time. And so we decided this was a good use of this park. We think a good marriage with the hiking that's currently there. Relatively low impact as opposed to a soccer field. At one time we looked at the possibility of possibly an athletic field up in this area. That would definitely be a much greater impact on the property and the neighborhood. We think this is low impact. So it's been part of the 5-year plan. I'm going to review the course just a little bit, then I'm going to ask Craig Smolin to come up, who's actually our designer. But some of the features for you to be aware of, we are planning on expanding parking. This is the current parking lot area. Maybe 5 or 6 cars can go in there. We're looking to expand it to about 20. All the trees would come down in that parking area to expand it for up to 20 cars, which would benefit people hiking as well as people playing disc golf there. The entrance and exit remain the same. There's no change there. I met out there with the assistant police chief to talk about, because some people had concerns about the exit and traffic. And the only thing he did mention is that the sight line looking east to the right here could be improved, and we can do that. These are all low-lying, this is all town property here. It's saplings and brush. We can easily take that out. That wouldn't be an issue. And that would, in his mind, I think, create a little bit better sight line there. It's a community project. We have 2 Eagle Scouts who I think are here. James Crosley is proposing as an Eagle project to build the kiosk, which would, I don't know the exact location, probably be somewhere around the either the parking lot or maybe, toward the first hole, probably in the parking area. And then Cliff Makowiak, as an Eagle project, is going to build all the tee boxes. The rules of disc golf are just like golf, except you don't have to worry about divots. And the tee box is basically about a 5 by 10 foot stone dust area platform to throw the frisbee, sorry, it's not a frisbee, disc from. And so we have an Eagle Scout who's interested in doing that. Bartlett Tree Company will voluntarily take the trees down in the parking lot for us at no cost.
Craig, our designer, is a volunteer. He's designing this at no cost. He's also an environmentalist, so he's sensitive to the environmental issues that we have. We already have people who have offered to be sponsors of this golf course. We haven't even solicited really any yet, but some have come forward and said, hey, we'll contribute to the development of this. So it's going to be a very low-cost project for the community, and we think it'll be something that'll be a great benefit to the community, and it'll enhance the opportunity for people to come and see this beautiful property that we have out there. Let's see, sorry, I have to use my glasses because I'm trying to read my writing here. Get the points before Craig comes up. And Anderson Engineering, I just saw Todd here. They gave us a discounted price to do the survey of the entire property. We went to Wetlands Commission twice. It was approved twice by the Wetlands Commission. You may ask, well, why did you go twice? Well, we did because we met with members of the Land Trust. They had some concerns about the fairways that cross the trails, and so we moved some of them. By moving them, well, one, for example, number one, which actually was going to be here, was going to cross this trail twice. So it was moved, but now it moved it closer to the wetlands. And so we had to go back to the Wetlands Commission to get approval because of the changes that were made, and they approved it again. And I think, we worked with the Land Trust. I can't say that they're 100% happy with what we're doing here, but we did make changes because of their concerns, and we can certainly address those concerns if there are more later on if you'd like us to. But Craig, would you like to come up? And yeah. He's a designer. He's also a professional disc golfer, and I think he could probably give a little more detail about how this works.
Hi, Craig Smolin. I live at 101 Mariner Circle in Trumbull, Connecticut. I am employed by Triton Environmental, which is based here in Guilford, Connecticut, and I've been with them since April of 2010. I've been playing disc golf since the summer of 2004. I've been playing professionally for the last 5 or 6 years, and I've been involved in Norwalk and in Bridgeport, Connecticut, designing Cranberry Park and Veterans Park. And this is the first course I've designed on my own, but I think it's a great use of this park. We looked at Bittner Park initially, and we decided that based on the existing trail systems there that are used by horses and hikers, that we felt that that was not the best location to set up the first course here in Guilford. And after walking through Peddler's Park on at least a half dozen occasions on my own, I felt that this was a more appropriate location based on the elevation, the lack of existing facilities. It just felt like a better use of the land rather than Bittner Park. After initially designing the course with Rick's assistance and Kevin McGee from Wetlands, we identified the central area here as wetlands and this area here as wetlands, and we designed the course to stay out of those areas. We also note that, in particular, this area here is a former landfill, and we're trying very hard to stay out of that area also. Now, the impact to the land is minimal. We're focusing on cutting trees that are 8 inches in diameter or less, so no old growth trees will ever get cut down. I've seen numerous parks where the removal of small trees actually improves the health of the forest. Any other questions? I'm happy to ask. Like I said, my background is environmental geology, so I felt that with my background in disc golf and professionally that I could ably assist Rick in designing the course.
Tell me, you've described the tee boxes. Can you describe, I guess, what you would call the fairway? Is this a maintained lawn? What is it?
No. The fairway in particular works with the land. They can be as narrow as 15 feet, as wide as 100 feet. It depends on what the land provides. So in particular, if you look at hole 1, it's hard to gauge looking at a topographic map, but there are 6 or 7 trees that are about 20 inches in diameter, and they frame the edges or the sides of the fairway. Within that boundary are another half dozen trees that are 10 inches, and they'll stay in place also. And then there's smaller, newer growth trees that are 6 to 4, 2 inches in diameter. Those are the trees that we would be cutting down to provide flight lines for the discs.
Is there any type of regular maintenance that will be needed, like mowing, for example, or?
There is no grass,
It's
sorry.
going to be growing over the years too, so 5 years, what's the course going to be any different as far as the growth?
The only area that has existing grass is the meadow area, and based on my experience with other courses, volunteers come and can mow down any high weeds, but the rest of the land is suited for this because there is no grass. It's all bedrock outcrops, a lot of trees, and the long-term maintenance for disc golf course is minimal compared to, say, a soccer field or a basketball court, where yearly you're spending $15,000 to $20,000 to resurface, resod, reseed. And in large part, volunteers will do the year-to-year maintenance, and that's trimming down weeds that have grown up, taking down small trees that have come up, and removing debris, removing garbage that people leave from other uses.
These, whatever you call them, launching pads or
T-pads.
key pads, what is the construction, just natural stone or crushed stone or?
A variety of surfaces. Initially, we would look at using just a natural surface, taking out any existing rocks, stumps, roots, and trying to get a flat level surface to stand on. Long-term, your options are stone dust. There are artificial grass tees at some courses, rubber fly mats at other courses, and concrete tee pads. Concrete is the most permanent, and it's hard to install and hard to remove, and that is not something we're initially looking at for this course.
Also, judging, just unrelated to that, the Westwood Trail System, could you orientate us to that?
Yes, that is a primary safety concern. The Westwood Trail is this black line here. Now, initially, we had a couple holes crossing over it, and here, and I've changed those to alleviate some of these safety concerns where people would be coming up in a blind spot and they would not see somebody throwing, or somebody throwing would not see a hiker. The one hole in particular that Rick and I walked with on our own, and we are asking for some compromise with the land trust, is this corner here. There's a trail that cuts in front of the teeing area here, and we are asking to reroute it down behind where the hole could potentially be located, and volunteers would do that work. We would reroute the existing trail system. And those are the two primary conflict areas. The trail heads are here, and as you can see, almost every other hole stays away from the land trust.
And I don't think there are, but are there any residences bordering this at all?
No, there are some residents. This is Peddler's Road here, and there are residents over here, but this is an undeveloped lot here.
Don't survive over there.
Yeah, I'll get to that. So over here, there's a house. This is all land trust property here. And then along this side is where you do have some residents. And we are trying to keep any and all holes away from their property. So no one would be throwing towards a house or even teeing off near a house and throwing away from it.
Well, with regards to the spacing, just try to get an idea of the spacing, about how far away is it, like a couple hundred yards from the houses, and also from the wetlands too. Is there a possibility of errant throws going into the wetlands?
Excuse me. We have a 25-foot buffer from the wetlands, and although the possibility always exists of some throws ending up in the wetlands, what we could propose to do is make those areas out of bounds and try to deter people from throwing into them. penalty shot in effect. The nearest house, I believe, is here, and it's, I believe, about 200 yards from the property line. And I know there is another house down here at this corner, and again, even though it looks close,
What's the average length of these poles?
200 feet to 350 feet.
Which street is that that's bordered on that side?
This is Peddler's Road, sir.
How about where the other houses are?
I don't know the name of the road that's over here.
Dennison Drive?
So if someone did throw it into the wetlands by accident, they would just have to leave their disc there, I mean.
No, they would retrieve it. They would recover it.
Go into the wetlands to recover it.
I've walked through there, I've walked around it, and I've walked through it, and it is not overly, I want to phrase this appropriate, it's not a pond. There's not a lot of standing water. To walk in and out directly is not going to create a huge environmental impact.
Any other questions for now?
Any consideration given to doing a 9-hole course with 18 different tees?
Yes, I considered that. From a standpoint of play, an 18-hole course has more appeal to your average disc golfer. I've seen 9-hole courses that don't get used at all, even if they're designed very well. An 18-hole course just has a little bit more appeal to your average disc golfer, just as an 18-hole ball golf course would.
So we got some letters we want to read in. Anybody want to start? Before we get, so there might be some questions answered in these letters.
This one's from Kevin McGee, dated today, the 20th of December. Reason being site plan, Peddlers Park Disc Golf Course, Peddlers Road, Guilford, Connecticut, Assessors Map 72, Lot 13. The Park and Recreation Commission is proposing to construct an 18-hole disc golf course at their Peddlers Park property. It is my understanding of the project is that in order to construct the course, only trees under 8 inches in diameter will be removed, with the exception of the parking lot. The construction of the disc golf course is a low-impact use compared to other potential uses such as sports fields that would require clear cutting of large numbers of trees and the application of fertilizers which would impact the adjacent wetlands. The Guilford Inland Wetlands Commission on its October 11, 2017 and November 8, 2017 meetings approved a permit and a permit modification to conduct a regulated town activity of the Town of Guilford, Peddlers Park, Peddlers Road, map 72, lot 13, for the installation of the disc golf course, including clearing brush and small trees as shown on the Town of Guilford map dated September 27, 2017, and hand revised on November 7, 2017, to show location of disc golf course with conditions. A copy of approval letters are attached. Got another one here from Jim Portley, Town Engineer, dated today, December 20th, 2017, Peddlers Park Disc Golf Course. The proposed course will reinvigorate the park to the casual, less structured recreational facility that it once provided on the west side of town. The flat softball games and picnic areas were lost as league sports of all ages demanded more formal facilities. Frisbee golf appears to require little change to the landscape other than clearing some trees and brush, which in truth appears to be a healthy turn for the park. The small parking area required has been reviewed with Rich Maynard it may be cleared and graded with no impact on abutting property owners. Minor sightline improvements from the existing driveway entrance will be required, but the brush and tree removal are not significant. It is recommended the site plan be approved. Didn't force anybody to.
Somebody else pick that up? Want to pick up that one?
This one?
Yeah.
This is from the Guilford Land Conservation Trust. It's dated December 19th, 2017, regarding the proposed disc golf course at Peddlers Park. Dear Commissioners, I write this letter as president of the Guilford Land Conservation Trust and on behalf of its board of directors to express GLCT's concerns with the proposed disc golf course at Peddlers Park. Immediately to the south of this town-owned property is Westwoods, 1,000 plus acres of forested land preserved by and owned by either the state of Connecticut or the GLCT. The GLCT maintains two trails, the White Circle and the White Alternate Trail, on the town's property that serve as the northern entrance into Westwoods. The GLCT is concerned with the safety and overall impact a disc golf course may have on the thousands of hikers and mountain bikers who use these trails to access and enjoy Westwoods year-round. As we understand matters, the discs used in disc golf are specialized, of smaller diameter, sharper edge, and made of denser materials than the frisbees one might see tossed around the green. A cursory internet search quickly brings up examples of hikers or walkers injured, in some cases quite seriously, by errant disc shots. The golf course, as currently laid out, crosses the hiking trails on at least 5 occasions, placing hikers between the trees and target baskets at holes 7, 8, 12, 14, and 15. Of equal concern are the numerous instances where the fairways parallel the trails. The course designer himself cautioned against having a layout where golfers might be throwing in the same direction as those at an adjacent hole, presumably because golfers might be struck from behind without warning. It is also important to appreciate the topography, as, for example, hole 7 involves what would be a blind throw over a hill to a basket located next to the trail. It is difficult to evaluate the impact constructing a disc golf course will have on the overall property. GLCT members, with the course map in hand, have walked the property, and while the proposed trees and the holes have been marked by wooden stakes, one cannot easily judge how much clearing and cutting will occur. Parks and Rec has assured the GLCT that no trees over 8 inches in diameter will be cut, though several large trees would be cut in order to enlarge the parking lot. The layout has been tweaked in places to try to address GLCT's safety concerns, but given the proposed 18-hole course, there is likely no way to wholly separate and segregate the course from the trails. Parks and Rec has assured the GLCT that signs will be posted noting that hikers and mountain bikers will have the right of way and that disc golfers should refrain from throwing while trail users are in sight. It is not clear how these rules will be enforced. One solution may be a new layout that incorporates a smaller 9-hole course with holes laid out in such a way so as not to cross the trails and so as to provide more of a buffer from the trails. This would mitigate safety risks while still allowing multiple uses from the property. The GLCT appreciates you hearing our concerns. Very truly yours, signed David C. Grigsby, President.
Thank you, Matthew.
From last meeting's packet, I have some letters that were...
They don't need to be read. They're in the record.
They're already in the record?
They're in the record, yes. So as far as the safety or the discs themselves, I see one up here. Is that one of the discs or no that you have?
It is. Actually, my son has a couple that I brought in from my car just to show you guys a little more in depth. So you have a putter, which is a blunt edge, slow disc, mid-range, which is slightly more aerodynamic, and then you have a fairway driver and a high-speed driver. And admittedly, the high-speed driver is quite sharp-edged, and it can create a serious injury. I have personally been hit by one and I can attest to the fact it hurts. However, at that instant, I was the one at fault. I was watching a professional tournament, I was in the fairway, and the disc came into the place where I was standing and spectating, and I was not able to get out of the way in time, so it was my fault. In regards to the land trust safety concerns, in my opinion, in my design opinion, the holes that have an issue were hole 1, where we moved the teeing area from here over to here. Also with hole 14, Rick and I have discussed asking the land trust to close this little portion here, knowing that there's this access driveway here, which meets up with the rest of the trail here. Hole 8, you can actually see the trail coming up the hill from your right-hand side, and I don't believe that there is a direct safety issue there. Which leads us finally to hole 7, and that is, as I mentioned in my initial intro, there is a concern there. That is why Rick and I were proposing to replace the trail or relocate it down below where the basket would be located to remove that safety concern. The trail itself comes up the hill in front of the tee box area, and any potential disc golfer on the tee would see someone walking towards them in either direction.
Is this, all of this located on town property or on land trust property?
It is entirely on town property.
So the land trust is currently using town property for their
Correct.
trails?
The land trust has these established trails. They have 2 primary trailheads here and here, and then as you can see, the black line is, I would say it's an established trail, but it's more of a goat path where park users have worn it down, and that's where they have created their trail system. And we are sensitive to that use, and we made every effort to stay away from it and not cross over wherever possible.
So I've been on this property quite a number of times with wetlands, and I have not seen it used by thousands of people, as it says in Mr. Grigsby's letter. And my question for you is, and I'm sure I misheard it, I thought I heard somebody say that there were 5 parking spots.
Currently, there's about 5 spaces, but we were going to
Right.
expand that.
So the thousands of people that use this, use those 5 parking spots to access this? Am I misunderstanding?
I'm Tom Terwell, representing the...
Ah.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
We're talking thousands of people who use that 1,000 acres.
Not particularly that entrance.
Not particularly that entrance. We have many entrances all around that 1,000 acres, Sand Hill Road. So this is just one entrance of that system.
Okay, so the thousands of people that use these trails are not necessarily using this little corner.
Correct.
Ah.
That one parking lot. What we are concerned about is, as we make the parking lot bigger, are more people going to be apt to use that parking lot, so we'll have more people on the property of Peddlers.
Got it. I misunderstood. I didn't understand how thousands of people could use that with that few parking spaces. And the couple of times that I was there, no one was using it. So I understand, but thank you for clearing it up for me.
So if I can I add a couple of things? I don't know when people have questions, I'll be able to answer them, or this is my only time to talk, so.
No, you'll have plenty of time to answer questions.
Okay, all right, because the public may have some issues.
Yep.
But we try to address all the issues, because we've seen the newsletter, the emails, and we've talked to people. And as we said, we met with the land trust folks, we made some changes because of those concerns. Craig was really good about, as a volunteer, go out there over and over and over again to try to relocate some of these to accommodate those issues. And as Craig said, many of them that Mr. Grigsby mentioned are areas where you can clearly see if somebody's hiking on the trail. This is one of them right here. If there's a T here, and there's a trail there, you look left, right, there's no question, you know if there's somebody's hiking there. Just like in golf, you're not going to hit a golf ball if there's somebody in the fairway. they're not going to throw a disc if there's somebody crossing the trail there. And I've spoken with other Parks and Recreation directors in 4 other communities that have disc golf courses. And actually, one of them is here. Jason Michael is here, who designed a course in Wallingford. He'll talk, I think, probably too in a minute. Wickham Park is the biggest, most expansive, it's 27-hole disc golf course in Wickham Park, Manchester, East Hartford Town Line. And I've spoken with their director there. It's a very multi-use park. I mean, there's a ton of things going on in that park. And they've been open for 7 years. There was one incident where somebody got hit with a Frisbee. They didn't get hurt, they got hit. No serious injury or anything. I've talked to Rockwell Park and Page Park in Bristol, the director there. Trails cross the fairways, never had an incident with anybody getting hit with a disc golf. What's the other one I spoke to? Center Springs Park in Manchester. There were 4 that I spoke with, and none of them said all of them said there were never any issues. I also asked, what is peak time, what's peak crowd? Because people have been concerned about extra traffic on the road. Again, Wickham Park is the most extensive one in the state. Peak time would be Saturday or Sunday morning, peak crowd is 20 people. It's probably 10 cars. So we're not talking about Calvin Leeds School on Soccer Fest weekend. And I know because I live across from there, and there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cars going there. That's not happening. It's a sport. It's growing in popularity. I can't sit here and say we're never going to have more than 4 people there. I have to say, and I've been there a lot in the last 6 months, and to your point, Rich, I've never seen more than 4 cars there in all the times I've gone there for people hiking.
I've got a question for you, and I really don't know, and I'm not baiting you in any way. So I like to walk in the East River Preserve, and when I go and walk in the East River Preserve, I wear bright-colored clothing, only because I've heard that there's hunting in there. And so I want to give myself every chance that I don't get shot or with a bow and arrow or whatever. So how does trail walking and hunting coexist? Are they done at different times?
Well, that's a very valid point, so I was going to bring that up. In Westwoods, I believe there are parts of Westwoods where there is hunting and there's hiking. Those are bullets flying. These are discs. And so I think the safety issue is overblown. I don't think it's an issue. Again, talking with other professionals and disc golfers who play a lot all over the state, I don't believe that's an issue.
So Westwoods has hunting on it?
I think there are parts of Westwoods that have hunting. Isn't it, Tom? Is that true?
There are parts of it's owned by Guilford Land Trust, and there are parts that are owned by the state. It's part of the state forest system. So at different times of the year, it's regulated by DEP. As far as hunting, I don't know exactly what animals they do hunt there. I think there's bow and arrows, loud, and might be some shotgun. So yeah, there is a mix between hunting and hunting.
So in your experience with the hunting aspect of it, have there been a lot of injuries from hunters on trail walkers?
As you know, I was the police chief at Guilford, and I just retired, so I don't recall of any incidents that anybody was ever shot hiking versus in the woods.
And you were kind enough to grant me my pistol permit. I remember the talk you had with me about gun safety.
I was questioning it, but it was only kidding.
So how realistic is the concern of injuries to the people that are using the trails if at the same time that they're walking around these discs, they're also in other parts of the trail system and also in the East River Preserve walking around bows and arrows and gun hunters?
I don't know how many people actually hunt in there. I use the Westwoods quite a bit. It's my favorite place to go. And I don't recall of ever really hearing any shots. And I go in there during the weekday and the weekends. And I don't think, I've never heard of anybody hunting here. They can, but I've never heard it myself. What Land Trust is worried about is, as you know, they're talking about dogs, people walk the dogs, there's kids hiking, there's cyclists, you get a little toddler like this walking with mom and dad. Are they, it's a possibility they're not paying attention and they could be beaten by the Frisbee. So that's our concern. If we can make sure that, we can both go to, work this out, and so the golfers can do what they have to do and the hikers can do what they have to do and limit the injuries as much as we possibly can.
In regards to the commingling of the uses, I can tell you that in East River Preserve, when my dog was alive, I used to walk my dog, and there were these crazy people that had packs of wild dogs. And fortunately, I was carrying my firearm, and that pack of wild dogs decided that they wanted to attack me and my dog. And so, I was in a really uncomfortable position. But the conflict doesn't necessarily come just from discs and walkers, but there are also people that probably have large amounts of dogs that aren't nice. on these trails. So, you know, I understand that the land trust is trying to say, well, this is a tremendous danger to the people that are using the trails. But from my experience, I don't see, and I'm trying hard to see, but I don't see the risk that these people are presenting being any worse than the folks who are hunting there or have their dogs there that aren't controlling their dogs.
We've worked with Rick several times. We've been out looking at the trails, and we did talk about moving some of the stuff around, and they were able to move some of it. Some of these trails, we're worried about the topography. You know, can we reroute this trail? As you can see, that the lines indicate, you know, the height, the difference of heights. And can we reroute the trail along this ridge? Again, we have to make sure that we can have, you know, people that are walking the dogs, and there's different people with physical problems. Little kids, can they actually make that ridge? So that's something that we'd have to take. You know, we have guys that go out and plan the trails and design them. And so they would have to take a hard look at, could we actually reroute that trail to go around it based on the topography of, there's a lot of cliffs in through this area here.
I can speak specifically to this part. We're not asking to reroute this section because I know it is, in fact, quite steep.
Right.
I'm asking to move it a little bit closer to our T area and then reroute it below where our basket could potentially be located in order to remove the safety concern, to alleviate the safety concern.
Thank you both. Is there more in the presentation?
Just one thing, I want to comment on
Yeah.
because it may come up. There's been some concern about that was a burning in the 1950s. I talked to Jim Borley about that. There is some metal that is exposed specifically here. That is, the Wetlands Commission also approved an application to take that metal out of there. It's not part of this project, it's separate, so it has nothing to do with what we're doing. But former First Selectman Mazza had made that request. We try to get some of the unsightly stuff out of there. I don't know what it is, it's metal, car parts maybe or whatever. And it's in a wetland area, and that was approved to move that out. Again, it's not part of this application, not part of our project, but I make reference to that. And I think it's important for the residents to know who are concerned about it having been a dump. 16 of these 18 fairways are nowhere near the former dump, nowhere near it. The former dump, I believe, was in this area here, and then maybe over here. None of this, to our knowledge, is all upper area. We've seen no evidence of any kind of metal when we walked through all this. So the only ones, maybe this one, it goes by where that scrap pile sort of is there, and this goes across the meadow. But keep in mind, there was a softball field down there. And we're basically doing what is already happening now. People are walking through the park. People are going to, with this project, walk through the park carrying a disc and throwing it. And there's no impact on the former dump in any way whatsoever. So we have no intention of cleaning any of the metal out of there, digging it out. We've actually advised not to by various agencies in town, including the health director, the town engineer, the town attorney, and there's no reason to do it. We're doing nothing more than, in those areas, than what's going on right now, hiking.
In any other parks that the town has, are there conflicting uses where any of the people that are using these parks are at any kind of risk from other people using them? In other words, like you chose not to put this up at Vintner because there were trails crossing there. So are there other parks in town that have uses which conflict with the people that are using them? In other words, I don't, East River just keeps coming to mind about, hunters and walkers in the same place. But are there other recreational uses of parks that are in conflict with each other, to your knowledge?
Well, Vintner Park, I mean, people, they walk their dogs there. A lot of people don't have their dogs on leash, and sometimes there are 5, 6, 7, or 8 dogs, and there are people on horses. If you want to talk about a conflict, loose dogs and horses is not a good situation. The dogs sometimes can bark at the horse can, rear up, and I've heard of a story where somebody got bucked off a horse in Vintner Park. So are there conflicts like that? Do they happen? I mean, are we going to shut the trail down and say, no, you can't go horseback riding? I mean, really what should happen is people should keep their dogs on a leash because that's a law. So I'm not sure I'm answering your question, but we don't see any conflict at all We see it as a good joint venture or marriage between what's already happening there and what we're proposing to happen there.
Now, there's a trail system on Route 77 north of town where there's horse use on the trails and there's walkers, I think, and I'm going from memory here, I haven't been up there in a while. Have there been conflicts there where, I know at one time some folks were using a trail and didn't want to get out of the way of the horse didn't want to get out of the way of the person, and it got a little dicey. Is that a common occurrence or no?
That I don't know, because we don't manage those trails. I mean, that'd be a better question for Kevin McGee maybe, but, you know, we're not, you're talking about Braymore or maybe some other properties.
Yeah,
north.
exactly.
That's not under our department, so I don't know.
I'm just trying to establish a pecking order of where the danger really exists.
I think we did a good job.
Mr. Chairman, can I?
So, you want to make a comment?
Yeah, so I think one of the questions that the Planning and Zoning Commission needs to consider here is what is the role and responsibility of the Planning and Zoning Commission with respect to this type of application?
I got that.
Okay. That's something that you, I think, need to explore because we don't usually get in. Town parks are permitted uses under the Planning and Zoning Commission's rules, the zoning code, and we administer the zoning code, as you know. The specific design and who decides what the use is, I think it varies depending on the type of property, but in this case, the Park and Recreation Commission has to make the judgment or decision as to how they want to use their property, as long as the use is something that is consistent with the zoning code, and that's your responsibility to make that judgment.
So basically, the other thing I wanted to make sure everybody understands is this site plan application did not require a public hearing. So a couple people had asked me, how did it become a public hearing? And that was actually by request of the applicant. So to put that to bed, that's why it's a public hearing, but it should not have been a public hearing. But Rick Maynard and he had asked on behalf of the Park and Rec to make it a public hearing. And once again, I want to just reiterate what George said. So basically, and this is for, you know, our own commission and the people in the audience that might have questions. So as we know, town facilities, including parks and recreation facilities, are allowed in all zones subject to site plan review by this commission. And as a commission, I think that we need to basically confine our review to matters that are relating to the zoning compliance, such as setbacks, coverage, public safety, which we've been addressing, and health, traffic, things like that. And if there's any impact on proposed activity of the adjoining properties, and that's it. As far as questions or concerns about the need for the type of facility or whether this property should be used for some other public purpose, it's not really our jurisdiction. That's really on the Board of Selectmen, or in this case, the Park and Recreation Commission. So when we ask questions and we give comments, I don't think you need to waste this commission's time on what we think it should be or shouldn't be. It really we don't have that jurisdiction. We're a land use commission. So I wanted to kind of clarify that and make sure you guys remember what we're actually here for.
I just want to give Mr. Maynard one more. This is not to be confused with something that's going on like at Nut Plains. There is no annexation of beyond the existing boundaries of this compound.
No. And that's why we had the survey done by Anderson Associates, so we knew the boundaries, we knew what was the park, and because it is a park, by town charter, it's under the complete authority and jurisdiction of the Parks and Recreation Commission. And this is the decision, all the commissioners are here, they made a decision, this is what they want to use this property for.
I have one last comment regarding the safety issues, if I may. Sure. From 2006 to 2016, my wife and my family, we lived in Norwalk, and we lived 8 minutes away from Cranberry Park, which also has a disc golf course, and it's had one since 2001. Cranberry Park, unlike a great many parks in this state, has a dog-free of a leash rule. So you're allowed to walk your dog on the trails without a leash, as long as it's under voice command. In the past, that did present some safety issues with disc golfers and pedestrians, and we felt that it was in our best interest to post signs for pedestrians and dog walkers. You're entering a fairway that has frisbees flying. Please be aware, and we will yield to the pedestrians at all times. And I've been playing there for close to 15 years, and I have never seen an incident where a pedestrian or a disc golfer had a conflict, and the disc golfer was at fault. And we felt that putting signs at crossing points on the trails here as part of our installation would alleviate that concern also.
Thank you. Is anybody else from the commission? We have a question at this time.
Nope, good.
We're good. I'm going to ask anybody in the audience for a question, and if you do have a question, please come up to the mic because the camera needs to get you on, that mic is for the camera sound and for the TV, and please remember to state your name and address for the record.
Can my son just say something briefly?
Sure.
Because he's been waiting very patiently. Walk up to the
Disc
mic.
golf helps the community because and I know this from experience, that it will have tournaments that donates the money to charities, and also it makes people want to go out and go into the forest and have fun. And it's good for families too. And I've been going to parks with my dad since I was 2, and I've known that my dad will take a weekend, and it might be snowing, and he will go outside and he'll play disc golf.
All right, thanks.
Thank you very much. You're a very sharp young man. Okay, so, and once again, I'm sure all these gentlemen will be up here to answer questions. So at this point, like I said, I'd like to ask if anybody has any questions for us or for the applicant. Please come up and...
I'm Patricia Keegan. I live on Peddlers Road. I've lived on Peddlers Road for 38 years. I'm not sure how far back all those activities you talk about went on Peddlers Park, but I've never been aware of them in the time I've lived there. And I want to speak on behalf of Peace and Quiet, leaving it the way it is. I've taken my dog in that area. There's no conflicts. There's never been an issue about possibly getting hurt. And I appreciate that it's a activity that some people might like, and the fact that you are thinking about an 18-hole course instead of a 9-hole course is concerning to me, because if anyone has driven on Peddlers Road, it is not an easy road, even for people who live on the road. And there will be people who are unfamiliar with the road. And I just think it's an accident waiting to happen.
Is there a question in this?
Where do I go to object to this? That's my question.
Okay, well, you can do it now. You're up. There is going to be time for that comments. But
Okay.
you can do it now, seeing you're up if you'd like to.
Well, when you said that, maybe 10 people would come on the weekend, why are you expanding the parking lot to hold 20 cars? That's a question.
Well, accommodate hikers and disc golfers, because there are hikers that do still use it, so we're not, that's another thing.
Exactly.
I think some people think we're shutting the trails down.
No,
Maybe we're not.
I don't think that at all. I just think it's just nice to have a peace and quiet trail that you don't have to
So
concern
the question was
yourself.
to accommodate, the answer was to accommodate both disc golfers and hikers, right? Let's see, is there any questions from the audience at this time?
Hi, my name is Pat Coyne. I live at 71 Dennison Drive. I have some questions about the presentation thus far. When asked about the residents on Dennison Drive where I live, I think it was pointed out that there were 2 homes that are adjacent. I just wanted to clarify that there's 6 homes, and also that those homes were between 200 and 400 yards from the proposed use, and that's not true at all. So you have, just use my knuckle for the scale here. My property is right here, up against hole 14. So you have 1, 2, 3, I'm the 4th house, there's a 5th house, and there's a 6th house. So I think that's kind of a major clarification I want to make, if not a question. Also, I appreciate Rick for mentioning my concern, which doesn't pertain to this committee, so I won't bring it up, but the historic landfill, which was here, and I understand it doesn't pertain to your use either. I also want to ask a question about the trees that are going to be cleared. And just point out the scale of this property. This is 33 acres. That's a huge piece of property. To clear every tree inside the footprint of these polygons under 6 inches, I just want to know how much biomass is that we're talking about clearing. Who's going to do it? Where's it's going to go? This is red brush. This is fast growing underbrush. How are you going to keep it down, year after year?
Where's it going to go? A lot of it will stay there. We talked about that when we went to the Wetlands Commission, especially areas where there was a slope sloping down toward the wetlands. We talked about, any trees that come down, we lay them across so it's almost like a curb in a way to keep any help with erosion control. That's where some of that would go. Some may get chipped, and wood chips may be good pushed back into the woods. A lot of this is done by volunteers. Again, probably Craig and Jason could address that because they've led projects like this, and so I would refer to them to help, defer to them to help answer that. Where they all go, I don't know, but again, most of them probably left on site. The brush we talked about, again, with the Wetlands Commission, leaving the brush there, so that creates animal habitat. So much of that would stay there. And, again, these are not, the scale we made these at roughly 50 feet wide. We just did that for an idea. I mean, as Craig said, some of the areas might be only 15 feet, some could be a little wider, but no big trees are coming down. They're all small trees. And there are a considerable number of little trees that are 6 inches, 8 inches and smaller that would come down, but any large growth stuff is going to stay.
Okay, thanks, Rick. I don't know anything about setbacks. You guys know a lot about setbacks. If I wanted to put a shed here, I think I'd be talking to you guys. These encroach not only on the property line, but this line here represents the setback from the wetlands. And there's wetlands here. There's wetlands. This is my property. There's wetlands on my property. It's not a wetlands in the middle because they've been filling that landfill for years, and as a result, it's not a wetland anymore. My last comment is about the parking lot. 5, 6, 7 cars at a time on nice days, it overflows out on Peddler's Road. I would say that there are thousands of users of this. It's not a goat path. It's a clearly marked, if you get a map of Westwood Trails, this is part of it. It's a very productive use. And if you've ever heard of or seen the plank walk, those 2 trailheads here, this one here is access down to a very, very popular plank walk. And people are accessing the White Trail, which does loop around here to access that plank walk area. So I just wanted to point out those inconsistencies and ask those questions. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I would like to follow up on his question. So you guys basically said there was 200 to 400 yards away. What is the actual scale of those houses on that side on Denison?
What is this? I'm sorry, the map scale?
How close are those houses? Because you guys are representing 200 to 400 yards, 2 houses. And I think I've been down Denison a couple times too, and I believe there is a few more houses.
I have 2 acres. And it abuts that, where number 14 is, that's how close it is to the hole.
Would you say it's about 50 feet away, 100 feet?
It's probably between about 75 feet away.
From your house or from your property line?
From my house, from the property line, it's tens of feet.
Okay, but there is a trail. It's already public use going through that. We are west of that trail.
I just want to make sure that we're clear, because it was a representation that the closest residence was 400 yards away, 200 to 400 yards.
I believe I may have misstated on those distances. They are likely closer. The property line for those residents is along the eastern property boundary of the town park. But the houses themselves are set further back across the property line, obviously.
Rich, I don't know if it would help you. Here's we have a map of the Westwood Trail System. Where you'll see Denison Drive. You can see the houses on the houses on yes, here's Denison. So these are the houses.
Oh, yeah. Makes sense. Thank you. It's a great question, by the way. Other questions at this point?
My name is Barry Felson, 1231 Moose Hill Road. A couple of questions. Is there any plan for this to be lighted and used at night? Okay. Roughly how far is the 17th hole from Peddler's Road?
Well, there's a scale there. what's the scale, 40 feet is an inch?
Yeah, it looks like it's,
So about 40
that's what it
feet or
looks
so.
like. Having played golf and thrown a Frisbee, I know what kind of a hook you can get going. One of my concerns would be the trees that will form a barrier between Peddlers and the 17th. Are they dense enough to avoid having discs ending up on the road, crossing the road, hitting cars, hitting people? This is and I'll reinforce what Pat Keegan said before. This is an insane road. It's a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. I have yet to see anybody going 25 miles an hour, including myself. I try and keep it below 35, but we see people blowing by there 50 miles an hour. So that would be a concern. If something's going to be crossing and swerving, we have people who run. We have people. My family runs. They cycle. All of that. It's not just this that I'm concerned about. In fact, I'm not really concerned about that. I'm much more concerned about what goes on around the border of it. Just give me a second here before you start answering. And the last question is, if you put a 20-space parking area, what is there to prevent people from, if there's overflow from that, if this really takes off? And I think it's a great idea. I'm not arguing against the idea. People will start, my concern would be that people will start to park on the road, and if you drive that road, you already know how dangerous it is. If you've got to swerve around people who are parking illegally on that section of road, it becomes even more dangerous to the walkers, to the runners, to the cyclists, and to other drivers. And that's my major concern is the safety aspect.
We did discuss that with the assistant police chief, and I think they brought it up to the police commission. I think, I was not to me, but I know he and I discussed it when we were out there. He made the same point, there's no way we can allow parking there, but that's up to the police commission, they'll have to post it, no parking. But
I understand that, and you know, I also know that people will not obey the signage. That's
when they get tagged and
well, that's great, but that doesn't take care of the safety issue. They may get tagged, they may get towed, they may get fined, but I live at the corner of where Peddlers hits Moose Hill and Moose Hill, and I can't tell you how many people blow through that stop sign at 25, 30, 40 miles an hour. People don't, you know, that's my major concern is the safety on the road with increased traffic on the road, people not being familiar with it. That's got to be addressed, in my opinion.
So with one of the ways of addressing that, and I guess this is more to Rick, is if this really does take off and people are overwhelming that parking lot, I would presume that you would then make a larger parking lot than just 20 spaces, no?
Where do you
I mean, well, we have to come back, we probably have to come back for another application to do that, right? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if that happens, I guess we do that. There's not too much room to move.
Using what as room for that?
So that's probably not going to happen. So let's stick to the point. He answered whether that's the right answer or not. That's the answer now, would be enforced by the town, no parking signs, tagged and towed, however it worked. That, I mean, we can't do anything about that other than what was presented. And as far as your other question, let's let this gentleman answer it.
117, Eckers Road is set at an elevation about 25 feet above the elevation of the fairway of hole 17. And the other part of that question, there is a significant tree density along that road, and that would not be changed. Those trees are much larger than 12 inches in diameter, and we would be leaving those.
Okay, thank you.
I have a follow-up question about the trees being removed. It's going to be any trees under 8 inches? I believe, is that just in the fairways, or is that throughout the 33 acres?
No, just the fairways.
Just the fairways.
It's a parking lot. Parking lot, and all those trees would have to come down, obviously.
Yes,
No trees.
in between the fairways, the trees will remain.
Right, and any larger trees in the fairways remain. I think in the application, the packet, I gave you, I think I had a picture of one of the tee boxes at Lethbury Park that Jason designed to give you an idea how all the large trees are there, just basically clearing the undergrowth that was gone. I think that was in the packet that when I put the application in. So I just took a picture of that, happened to be up there, and wanted you to just get an idea of what it looks like. It's not clear. It's not people think about fairways, golf courses, and I think we made it pretty clear, this is nothing like a golf course. It's woods. It's basically a trail through the woods when you're throwing a disc into a basket as you're walking along.
Any other questions at this time? Please.
I have a question, and then I have some comments.
Sure.
I'm Deborah Daddio. I live at 101 Dennison Drive. I've lived there for over 35 years, and prior to that, I lived on Moose Hill Road. First, my question. Who is allowed to use this facility? Is it limited to Guilford residents, or can people come from out of town and use this facility?
Like any park we have, anybody can use it.
Okay, so we're not just talking about attracting or providing another option for Guilford residents for recreation. We're talking about possibly being a magnet for people who want to pursue this sport from surrounding towns or cities.
It's possible. It's being designed to develop for Guilford residents, but we're not going to have a guard there to, check IDs or something. So, yes, there are people from out of town, I'm sure, will use it, just as they do Vintner Park, the trail's there.
Every park in
Hikers there
Guilford
use it
can be
now.
used by anybody, Guilford residents or non-Guilford residents.
Right, but if this is, how many of these facilities are there in Connecticut?
26 in Connecticut.
In Connecticut, about 26, nationally 25 to 3,500.
Okay, and how
Worldwide,
many,
over 6,000.
how many in New Haven County?
None.
None. So we would be the only facility for people in New Haven County who would like to partake in this sport. Okay, in terms of my comments, Peddler's Park runs parallel to Dennison Drive. It literally abuts the backyards and is in the backyards of several houses, as was pointed out. People who have chosen to buy or build in this neighborhood have done so for the peace and tranquility that comes with its designation as open space. Peddler's is narrow and winding. People walk, run, push strollers, walk dogs. There is no margin for error there. This road cannot safely accommodate an increase in traffic. Regarding the clearing of trees, all of those trees serve as a sound barrier to the highway, which has over the years expanded and gotten more traffic and can be heard quite clearly from across the street. So any clearing of trees would impact in terms of the day-to-day life of the residents of Peddlers and of Dennison Drive, and I'm sure other neighboring streets. In terms of the attraction to people out of the Guilford area, and there's no guarantee that what I'm going to say would only apply to non-Guilford residents, but I've personally had my vehicles broken into by people who live in New Haven, who come and park in Peddler's Park and then access through the trail systems to the backyards and the houses of Dennison Drive. So again, an increase in foot traffic there could very well be an attraction to people who have less than, beneficial motives for coming there. Again, there's an issue of property values. People on those streets in Dennison and Peddlers pay a lot of money in taxes to the town, and this would definitely impact their property values. And I think that needs to be taken into consideration. This proposed use is not in keeping with what I've seen on there for as far back as I can remember. There's a big difference between a family picnic and maybe an extended family getting together for a game of softball or something, and creating a professional activity such as this. There's many individuals who wanted to be here, but because of the date of it being a few days before Christmas, we're unable to be here. So I'd like to know what the best way is for them to make their opinions known.
Send a letter or an
Letter?
email. Yes.
Okay. Just to sum up, to put it very simply, there are no compelling reasons for the construction of this facility that would outweigh the potential for bodily injuries and the damage to property owners, hikers, and land trust land and the peaceful enjoyment of it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Questions? We'll go there and then you next. Yeah. And I promise you, we will do comments, so let's try to limit these to questions now so everybody can get through their questions.
Questions, no comments?
And we'll do comments after, I promise.
Okay. I'm Maria Cahill. I live on Dennison Drive. First question I have is any taxpayer money being used for this development?
No direct dollars. I mean, I'm paying my taxes, and I put a lot of time into this. But
Well, we pay you, right?
But no, it's going to be done by volunteers. Greg and Jason can tell you that volunteers design, build these in the state. Is how they're done, and they maintain them.
And the tee boxes, are there,
T-boxes are being done by a Boy Scout.
all the tee boxes are being built?
Yes.
Aren't there cages or something that the Frisbees go
Yes,
into?
those have to be purchased, but they'll be done through sponsors. We already have people interested in sponsoring this. We haven't been able to actively solicit sponsors yet until this got approved, but we have people coming to us saying, we want to help pay for that golf course.
Okay, so the what are those called, cages? What are they called?
Baskets.
Baskets. The baskets are not going to be paid for by taxpayer money. They're going to be paid for by people that are,
Sponsors or fundraisers.
and you haven't developed that sponsorship yet.
We have a list. We haven't gone to people yet because we didn't want to go to them until this was approved.
Okay. Did you ever think about notifying the people like on Dennison Drive and Peddlers other than 4 days before this meeting, when you sent the letter out?
This has been discussed for 6 months, the Parks and Recreation Commission meetings that are televised, and as you know, when we talked about a dog park there, 15, 20 residents were coming to our meetings, and so this has been openly discussed. It's been in the newspaper for 3 times. We've been talking about this since June, that we're going to be doing this at Peddlers Park.
Well, you brought up the dog park, so I would agree that with what you just said about the paper articles and what have you. And I know with the dog park, that group was very well organized, and there seemed to be a lot of people very interested in the dog park. And I'm just curious, is there a group of Guilford residents that are clamoring to have the Frisbee golf course?
I guess we'll find out during the public comment questions.
Well, do you know?
Yes and no. So once again, we're not going to discuss the use of this facility. It's not in our jurisdiction. It's pointless. I don't want to waste this commission's time. There's nothing we can do about that. This is proposed, like I said, by the selectmen and by the Park and Recreation Department. We cannot discuss that. There's nothing to discuss about it, whether the use is right or not. So I'd ask everybody to leave those comments, or I'm just not going to let you guys speak on that, because we'll be wasting this commission's time. There's nothing we can do about that.
Fair enough. The question to this commission is the concern about liability. It's been touched upon. That's, I think, in your guys' jurisdiction as far as public nuisance, private nuisance, traffic, noise, some of the issues that were brought up.
Public safety, health.
Public safety, and here's the concern. For me, I have been representing insurance companies and insurers like Kerma for 17 years as a defense lawyer, and if I was asked for a liability letter or an opinion as to putting a Frisbee golf course in the middle of 300 acres of trails or adjacent to trailheads or crossing over trailheads, I would probably say, legalese aside, that that's just nuts. To me, this seems crazy because these Frisbees obviously are not just regular Frisbees. They're flung pretty hard, and they do cross trailheads. That's my concern. Kids on bikes, people with dogs. You're not always, you're in the woods for a leisurely hike, and all of a sudden, some Frisbee comes flying by you or smacks you in the head. So I don't know. To me, that just seems like we're exposing our town and the municipality to a significant amount of liability. And I don't know, is Kerma I assume Kerma is the town's insurer? Is it Kerma?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
I think that this is an issue that the Park and Recreation Commission ought to deal with, I believe. All manner of recreation activities have liabilities associated with them, and I'm sure that the Park and Recreation Commission considers that. It's not really an issue that the Planning and Zoning Commission has any jurisdiction over, in my opinion.
Really? You don't think that the planning and zoning has a concern about public safety and liability?
Public safety, yes, but you're speaking about insurance liabilities?
Well, the only reason I asked that is because I was just curious if you knew if they had offered any opinion on this as far as public safety or liability.
To address the Park and Recreation.
Public safety, we have the concerns about moving the holes or moving the greens, fairways, so, and as far as liability and stuff, like I said, that's not in our scope.
And the maintenance of the park would be all volunteers?
Typically, they're volunteers. Again, all the ones that I've spoken with, the initial development is done by the volunteers maintain it.
And it's 30 acres? Is that 33 acres? What is the?
Ours is 30 acres, yeah.
30 acres.
Some of them are larger than that.
Would you consider a smaller park, say a 9-hole park, that maybe would be set back farther from the properties on Dennison Drive? Because there are, as Pat Coyne said, there are holes that are directly adjacent to and abutting yards with little kids that live there, that are outside playing. And this isn't a controlled environment. I mean, Frisbee golf, it's not really a controlled environment, right? I mean, so as far as the setback goes, is that something that you would be willing to work with the residents of Dennison Drive on in terms of maybe, backing it up a little or not having holes directly abutting the property line?
I think that would be a discussion I'd like to have with the Parks and Rec Commission and the designer.
Okay. Well, is that something that's possible? I mean, you said you've walked the property a number of times.
We can't make a decision right now. That's something we would have to discuss.
Yeah, we would like to, if you're willing to work with us.
We've talked about this. We've been told, and we appreciate the fact that an 18-hole is used more.
How so? Just because?
Because the disc golfers we talk with are telling us this. So we're not just making this up.
Similar to regular golf, obviously 18 holes are more popular than 9. They do exist, but...
I think Guilford Lakes is awesome, and that's a 9-hole course. Well, I'm just asking a question. If there's, it's easy when this isn't in your backyard to sit there and roll your eyes and whatever, but we are very concerned. We live there. We're concerned about, just as if it were in your backyard, we're concerned about the people.
It's all been taken into consideration in our meetings, too. I don't think any decision is ever made without the consideration of the Guilford residents.
Okay.
I mean, I've been on Park and Rec for a year now.
Okay.
And I will say, I'm from here all my life, and that's always my top priority.
That's good to know. And I know that we just hired a new selectman, and I remember when he was campaigning, the first thing he said was he wanted to get more involvement and transparency and work together with the community and not just,
Do you have any other questions?
I have comments, but you said no comments.
Yeah, let's do that, because we got that little discussion. I know there's another question somebody...
Mike Brown, 522 Peddlers Road. Our house is on the corner of Peddlers and the entrance to the park, okay? And I just want to make a couple of comments about, or questions about, I don't know where you got your information from, when I saw in the paper about there being a baseball field and a soccer field and a camping. I've lived there since 1976. And all it's been is a dump.
I never said soccer field, but I was told, just before I was here by town engineer, there was a picnic area and a softball field down there. I think people have been here for a long time.
Not since 76.
In the 60s. 60s and early 70s, I guess. It was a dump before that.
Okay. And you said there was something said about tournaments. Are you going to hold tournaments here? If you're going to hold tournaments, I don't think 20 parking places is quite enough.
If we do, we haven't decided we're going to do tournaments, but if we do, we would look at alternate parking, carpooling, or provide shuttle. So maybe the exit 57 parking area, or maybe we can talk with Bishops. I mean, these are program decisions we haven't made yet. Is it possible there could be a tournament there? Yes. We could also limit the number of people that are allowed in the tournament. If there are 20 spaces, maybe the limit is 40, and they got his carpool to come there. But those are programming decisions that we can make later on.
Okay. And in the letter you sent me a couple days ago, it said that the parking lot was going to be on the north side of Peddlers. Where is the existing parking lot? Right here?
North of the current lot. Well, I guess it's west. It's right here.
Okay, where's the entrance? Right here? So my house sits right here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and this is an expanded parking lot?
Yes, farther away from your house than what the current lot is.
Okay. And I also want to, somebody reiterate that that road is I've been run off the road twice now, just driving down the street. I mean, and I know you don't have control over that, but it should be a thought in this because there's going to be a lot more traffic.
Speed bumps.
Speed bumps?
All right, thank you very much.
I did see another hand is,
That's okay, it was a comment, I'll hold off.
you can hold off, all right. We have any other questions that we're looking to get clarified at this point? No, all right, so here's what we're going to do. Like I said, I'd like to keep the comments brief. Try to listen to what your fellow citizens are saying. We don't have to repeat the same thing over and over again. We've duly noted and we've taken in careful consideration everything that has been said, and we know a lot of the concerns. So we like to start, I don't know, this is our protocol, so we're going to do it this way, is anybody that is wishing to speak in favor at this point can come up and, once again, name, address, please, for the record, and come up to the mic.
Judy Sullivan, 1001 Goose Lane, and I am in favor of the disc golf course. I think it's another excellent activity for families, fitness. My field is physical education, so anything that gets people moving, I think is a great idea. I also, as I watch all these, and people say, and I don't mean to be rude, but it's like, I've been here for so many years, The thing is, Guilford changes. I've been here all my life. I've seen the farmland go, and I've seen everything change, and you guys didn't get the dog park, and it got up to Nut Plains, which is fine, and it's worked out well. I think everybody with their ideas and likes need to work together, and it'll work. And all the roads in Guilford are country roads. People just have to slow down. And I am in favor for disc golf.
Painful.
Unscheduled meetings. My name is Jason Michael. I'm from Wallingford. I'm the chief designer and builder of the course there. I'm not going to go much into this, as Rick and Craig both did a fantastic job covering the nuts and bolts. However, what they missed was the people who play this game. They're some of the finest people I've ever met in general. And when you make generalities, you can make marginal mistakes, understood. Touching into concerns about crime, there's a course that was just built in Bristol, in a rough part of Bristol, Rockwell Park. Had horrible issues with crime and dumping and drugs, and they had another disc golf park up there, a smaller one, and they allowed a second one because the first one had done such a good job at taming the park. Rockwell has flipped. It is now a place that people can go and feel safe because people are around. People call in, disc golf players call in and someone dumps something out of their car, breaks into their car. So it's not the players you're going to have to worry about here. If anything, they're a positive mark. As far as maintenance goes, they are self-maintaining facilities. Once the general brush is cleared, play traffic keeps it all down on the fairways. The rough outside of the fairways grows as thick as it can. You prefer it that way as a designer. You want people to be in trouble when you go in the rough. However, as far as maintaining them, a course will birth a group of players, Guilford locals, most likely. They will fall in love with it. They will care for it. They will pick up every bottle, can, bottle cap that they see, and the park gets better and better and better. Wallingford, we have a mayor there who's entered his 150th consecutive term. He doesn't really like change. I sat with him a couple times when I proposed this park, this course in the park, and we haven't heard from him since, which is a pretty big feat. We run a surplus for money as far as donations and course funds. We've never asked the park for a dime. It didn't cost Wallingford a dime. It has shown the people who grew up there that this park even exists. And so many locals, ranging from 80 years old to 8 years old, come and play. It's a fantastic way to get kids out of the house and off of their screens. It is a sport played by people who love the woods. It is hiking with a purpose. It's not terribly obtrusive to people around. We in Wallingford had to build along a whole road of people's backyards who abutted the course. I sat at numerous kitchen tables to soothe ruffled feathers, and the people gave us a chance. And we started the build of the course in 2010. We are now in 2018. It was completed in 2013, and we are yet to hear from any of them. I can't say it's an exact replica of where your houses are according to property lines, but I ask that you give it a chance. And I think you will be pleasantly surprised at the clientele who play the game. You might find yourself out there playing because it is a ton of fun. It doesn't cost much money to do, and it has brought nothing but positive changes to the parks that I have witnessed grow a course. There were parks that had courses before I started playing or got interested. I only played 12 times, and I proposed a course for Wallingford and started building it once the red tape was cleared up. So I'm going to be here after the meeting if anybody has any questions beyond what was asked or answered here, and I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in favor?
Hi, my name's Kevin Habicht, 830 Cedar Swamp Road, Coventry. It's a little ways away for me. I run several disc golf leagues in Tolland at my local course because that's the best one that's closest to me. And it's amazing how a community does grow around a course that supports it. And they're all normal people like myself that like to go out after work and do something that's active. Like, I haven't touched my Xbox in 7 years since I found out about this. So it's just an excellent way to get kids up and outside because it's every time you play, it's something different. It's a new challenge, and I'd really like to see something go down here because Connecticut doesn't have enough courses like this that are all. It'll contain a good variety of holes from what Craig has shown me, where a beginning player will get their first two and then they'll be hooked and love this course and this game. And I'd love to see the sport grow in the next coming years. Thank you very much.
I'm Pat Laffin. I live at 5 Acorn Drive in East Haddam. I was one of the guys who put in the disc golf course in East Haddam, Nichols Field, and we just opened in May, but we went to a lot of these meetings and heard a lot of the same concerns, and I just wanted to kind of echo what the other guys have said. You know, since we've opened, we've had nothing but positive feedback from locals, non-players, neighbors of the course. The concerns, have turned out to be not really an issue. And, I'm on the Parks and Rec Commission, and our director, Tiffany Quinn, has offered her, contact if you guys had any questions or if anyone wanted to reach out. And, we're not too far away, about 40 minutes away, so if anyone ever wanted to come out and check out what a fairway looks like and check out a course, we're right up the road, so thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Andrew Koss. I live at 760 Durham Road in Guilford. I think this would be a good idea for the town. It's a good way for someone like me to get some exercise without worrying about killing himself. And I just wanted to give it my stamp of approval.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Come up.
Hi, I'm Rose Dostert, 46 Cardinal Drive. I'm acting chair of the Park and Rec Commission. But I just wanted to echo what Judy had said. I've been on Park and Rec many years. And when we first tried to put in the playground at Jacobs Beach, we had a lot of opposition. We worked with the neighbors. We made some concessions. The playground went in. People love it. You can't keep people off of there now. We've had some opposition when we tried to improve Jacobs Beach. Jacobs Beach is used more now than ever. So my point is, give us a chance, because the improvements we have made to our parks have been successful. So I understand the concerns that people have, but give us a chance. I think this is a perfect way to use that property with the trails, minimum of impact, and I think people will eventually see that it was a good idea for us to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
I'm Cliff McCoyak. I live at 54 Chestnut Grove Drive.
Yeah, I'm James Coffey. I live on 170 South River Road.
And we wanted to voice our support for the disc golf course, not only because we, as potential Eagle Scout candidates, will be just working with this project, and I know I'm part of the T-box construction. He was doing the kiosk, and at our Boy Scout summer camp, we have a thing. It's a, how many holes is it?
It's over 10.
Over 10 holes. I think it's like 12. And I know a ton of people, a ton of kids there are so interested in it. There's like over the week, there's so many people that play. I think there's, I don't know, a lot of people in our troop play too. And it's just a lot of fun. It's good exercise, and it's not like over strenuous or anything like that. So
yeah. Also, like the disc golf course, it's basically almost woods with just like a small area taken out of it. And I feel like also disc golf is a really fun way to just like be outside. And I feel there can be a big base of support here in Guilford with young people who would like to play disc golf.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Todd Rake. I live at 133 Riverview Drive here in Guilford, and I'm in support of the disc golf course. I think it'd be really great. My daughter is 11 years old, and we're active. We hike, we walk around town, we fly kites at Jacobs Beach, and we're always looking for other opportunities to be active in town. So I just wanted to support. I think it'll be great for the town. Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure, ask it.
I just kind of want to get an idea of how the design of this course compares to the design of other courses in the state. Are other courses in the state mostly mixed use with other activities? And the conditions of this land, are they better suited for a disc golf course compared to other courses in the state? I just want to know exactly how the land and the design compares to other
That's
courses.
a multi-part question, and Jason and I can both answer that different parts. Having played disc golf since 2004 and falling in love with it immediately, it's been a love affair with one thing that I am more passionate about than my family. I've seen parks such as the one in Bridgeport, which is primarily disc golf. There are a couple other uses. I've seen Wickham Park where there are a multitude of uses. Cranberry Park in Norwalk has the dog park area, a large open field. They host weddings. There are numerous parks that are just for disc golf. So it varies from what the park itself supports and already has in existence. From a design standpoint, this is, in my estimation, an intermediate level course, which will appeal both to beginners and to experienced players such as myself. The elevation, the bedrock outcrops, it has a lot of visual appeal that I really fell in love with as I walked through there, and I think it has a tremendous amount of potential to the town and to bring in other players from outside of Guilford.
More to your question, and I failed to mention it before, but Loughbury Park is the name of the park we put our course in Wallingford. It had an existing trail system of 3 or 4 loops that went through probably 40 acres of woods. And one of the prerequisites to building the course was to be sensitive to the trail system, which we were. And now we live on a symbiotic platform as the dog walkers and trail hikers are thrilled that there are other people in the park at the same time. We did make a couple of adjustments. We asked, could we serpentine a trail around where moving a hole would have been a big difference, and they were more than happy with it. We added footage to their trails and a bit of an S-turn, and they were more than happy. But it was in place long before the disc golf course, and they've meshed beautifully since, if that answers the question.
You with that? You want to break it now? We can go off the record for a few minutes while we change the tape. No business will be discussed. And we are back on, I promise you, no business was discussed. So, we just had some questions answered. I'm going to continue. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in favor of this application? Once. Okay, anybody would like to speak in opposition?
Name's Chris Anderhagen. I live at 200 Landon's Way. When we first heard about this, they talked about putting it at Bittner Park that has great parking. It already brings people in who might be interested, but it crossed trails. So then we decided to move it to a place potentially that has terrible parking. It still crosses trails. And I know they address the safety concerns, but 30 seconds online, you can find towns that have been sued because people have been hit with the discs and lost their sight. The discs, the young man brought up discs. They can weigh as much as 6 ounces. I didn't know what 6 ounces equates to. It's the same as a pool ball. If I throw a pool ball at somebody, Rich Meyer maybe, I'll be charged with assault with a deadly weapon. So safety is an issue. They talked about there'll be a lot of people coming, there'll only be 5 cars. So I don't know whether it's viable, but let's talk about New Canaan. Nobody mentioned New Canaan's disc course. It was put in 2007. You talk to residents, it's called a failed experiment. It doesn't work. Talk to some students from a college that actually has an ultimate frisbee team, which I don't know what they do. They go around and play ultimate frisbee. It also has a disc golf course. It doesn't get utilized at all. So I'm not sure whether this is really a viable project, but I think the safety is an issue. We've got the road, cars getting hit. We've got the town getting sued. You say it's all going to be volunteers, but there's nobody who's going to volunteer to take the rap when it goes to court. Thank you.
Thank you. Please. Don't forget, I know you're already up, but still name and address for the record.
Sure. Maria Cahill, 84 Denison Drive. I just wanted to also, everything that this gentleman just said, excellent points. And I know some of the guys here talking about the disc golf course saying, I got hit, I'm fine, whatever. There are plenty of cases. I have done some research where towns are getting sued. And just for one, I think it's only fair because we've heard, I just got hit and I was fine. In fairness, I'll just give you a quick example of, not in this state, but in another state, there was a $3 million lawsuit. A woman who was minding her own business at an adjacent property to a disc golf course. I think it was a field. She was watching her kid play or participate in a race. She got hit in the head with a flying golf disc. She lost her vision, and she basically had had 4 surgical procedures and never regained her vision, and that was a $3 million lawsuit. Another incident with a 6-year-old boy who, again, was hit in the face with a flying golf disc and now has permanent traumatic brain injury, and with a lawsuit that's still pending. Those are just 2. I know maybe the facts are a little different, but I would argue that that's pretty much right on point with what's happening here, specifically because of the trail crossings and the backyards where children are, because it's not a controlled environment, and the discs are heavy, and they go flying. And if there's a way, and if I think, I don't speak for the rest of the people on my street, but I'm certainly, open to working together and seeing what, you guys come up with. If there's a way to set it back a little bit, reduce the size, I think a 9-hole would be definitely more reasonable use of the property because it might prevent some of these trail crossings where people are just, biking through. I don't think everybody's going to stop and look both ways and, for flying discs when they're out hiking with their family or their kids are out cycling. So there's definitely a public safety issue. And then as far as the people that live on Denison Drive, you've heard the concerns. I'm sure you'll hear from others. So and just to wrap this up, I'll leave it there. But thanks for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
My name is Matt Shoemaker. I live on 99 Denison Drive, which is located right about here. And my front door is about 100 feet from some of this right here. I'm against the course, but I think we could come to a resolution, maybe 9 holes more centrally located away from the neighborhoods and also away from the trails. I chose this property because I'm an avid hiker. I'm an avid mountain biker. I'm out there every day, and I actually go right through hole number 9 to access the trails because my property is that close. I love Guilford. I love this trail system, and it means a lot to me, so maybe we can come to a compromise. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak against application at this time?
All right.
Motion closed?
Table. Or is it closed?
I think it's a big decision now.
Yeah, no, this is it. It's closure.
I would
We'll have a
second the
discussion.
motion to close.
You second it?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Make a motion to approve the revised agenda.
Somebody second it. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So, let's deliberate on some items.
Those sportsmen.
Start with that one. Okay.
Sportsman?
Move that the
Club,
Guilford
put a shed in.
Planning and Zoning Commission approve a special permit for the New Haven Sportsman Club, 4158 Durham Road, map 122, lot 1, to install a storage shed as shown on application dated 10/27/17. The application is approved based on the finding that it conforms with the zoning code. The special permit is effective on December 27th and upon filing with the town clerk.
Second.
Any discussion?
Very straightforward. Great project. Fully prepared. They did a nice job. Great presentation.
All right, call the vote. All in favor?
Opposed, any abstained?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for being patient.
Hey, Brenda? Yep. Brenda Gorman?
You reading it?
Yep. That the Planning and Zoning Commission approve an accessory apartment special permit application for Brenda Gorman at 90 Wild Rose Avenue, map 67, lot 4-80, B2, shown on application dated 11/13/17. The application is approved with the following conditions. The application is approved based upon the finding that it conforms with the zoning code. The special permit is effective December 27th, 2017, upon filing with the town clerk.
Second.
Seems pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Any discussion? All right,
Easy stuff.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, thank you. We don't, well, you can make one up, right? Yeah, I didn't see the motion in there.
What's that, which one?
You want to do that one? Good.
Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a coastal area management application for replacing an existing shed at 52 Seaside Avenue, map 29. Lot 114 is shown on an application dated 9/15/2017. This application is approved based on finding that it conforms with the zoning code and is consistent with coastal management policy of the state of Connecticut.
Or with the variance granted, subject to the variance granted, it conforms to the zoning code,
Yeah, that too.
including that in your motion.
I, of course, include that.
Thank you.
But we don't have a second yet.
Second.
Okay, discussion, I know some of the concerns that you had, I know you have them.
I mean, if it's in a flood zone, then Mark will review it, and they'll
Yep.
have to comply with any new construction. But, I mean, if it's not, tell you how.
They said it's not, didn't they?
Well, yeah, I know.
They did, but we're not sure, but they said that, but like you said, hopefully Mark will review it and,
All the building
Yep.
permits kick into
exactly, that's gonna,
engineering too.
that'll trigger it, so we have a little bit of a safety net.
As long as it conforms.
Any other discussion?
Oh, they had that hardship that they had to deal with over at the hardship committee. So I think we should go ahead with it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? All right. You got it, don't you? You can't help it. Got it. Okay, we got the public hearing on Peddler's Park.
Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a site plan for the town of Guilford to build a 18-hole disc golf course at Peddler's Park, Peddler's Road, map 72, lot 13, as shown on an application dated 10/24/17, and disc golf course dated September 27, 2017, hand revised October 11, 2017, and November 7, 2017. The application is approved based on it finds that it conforms with the zoning code.
Okay, we got a second. So I'm going to let everybody kind of give their opinion, see where we all stand on this, but I do have a question for George. You're our planner, you're in here on staff now. So, there was, like we said, this really wasn't a public hearing, or shouldn't have been.
Well, not required, let's put it that way.
And we have very limited jurisdiction over what we're actually looking at. And while emotions play high in anything that, goes in people's backyard and safety concerns, there's not a lot that we can do for this. If it conforms to our regulations, it's pretty black and white, correct?
There are some, yes, I think basically it is. It's a use that's allowed. The issues that are subject to your jurisdiction, the areas where there's some qualitative nuance would be with respect to public safety. Does this application create an undue safety issue? And traffic is the second one. Both, traffic was addressed by your town engineer. Public safety is obviously a kind of big subject. I mean, in one sense, all park and recreation activities have certain liabilities associated with them, baseball and football and hiking and various other things. I think it's easy to kind of, and proper also, in my opinion, that that the issues about the use and the appropriateness of the use in terms of the town facilities is the responsibility of the Park and Rec Commission. In terms of liability, in terms of safety of the users of the facility, I think that's an issue that's properly theirs. Does this activity create adverse impacts on adjoining properties? It's another area of discretion that the Planning and Zoning Commission typically has. Again, that's something that you have to weigh.
But that would be done by a certified appraiser saying...
If it affects property values,
Right.
you heard no evidence that it would affect property values. And that issue has to be evaluated in the context of what's allowed, via the zoning regulations. Increased use of any property may be perceived as a nuisance or have an adverse impact on adjoining property owners. I think you've heard evidence that people think that it will, and that's a judgment then you have to kind of take into consideration. What else could be done with this property?
Well, that's exactly.
Is up to the Park and Recreation.
Right, that's not our concern. So, in my opinion, I think that, we have our regulations and it's an approved use. So I'm not seeing where we would have any reason to deny it. I am concerned on, with the public safety, is it too close, certain areas to the road? We understand that it's a heavily traveled road. I would like, maybe some more comment or somehow check that one area to make sure that hole can't be pushed if it needed to be pushed down a little bit. I don't know if we could actually not make a decision on that.
Here's where I come from that. I understand what the neighbors are saying. I understand about the road. I understand about the dangers. I understand about the danger of the disc. But I think we're faced with more dangers on the road than we do with that disc. Number two, as far as the traffic and what it allows for the town, traffic is going to be a problem, there's no question at all. But if anybody has a problem with traffic, it's me. I live on Charlie Road. I have people coming down there all the time to go out and glam. Am I against that? No. I was at first, but we worked a lot of things out. We still got people speeding down that road. I worry about the kids. I worry about a lot of things. But I also see kids out there clamming, the same as they're going to have here. In my eyes, anything that we get the kids out of the house, away from the cell phones and all that kind of stuff, and gets them out there and gets them interested in something, I'm for it. And I have the dangers that you're talking about a lot heavier than you probably will. We don't know for sure. But I know one thing. I want these little guys to get out there and get into any sport they can get into. And I like the elderly people to get out of the chair and go out there and play this game, whatever they can get into. So I'm 100% for it.
Thanks, Alan. So where it go down, Rich?
So, I agree with what, George said, and I certainly understand your instructions about how we have limited overview here. However, I would like to remind you and the rest of the commission and also staff that we're granted broad discretionary powers by the state. We are commissioners. They have given us these powers because we sit here and we look at their faces, we listen to their words, and we form opinions. And, I understand everyone has, it's great for, physical, getting outside, breathing, doing stuff, that's wonderful. However, my personal opinion is that this may not be the right place for this kind of thing because of the traffic concerns, because of the conflicts of trail walkers. There's been adequate concern placed in my heart by these folks, and I think that there is an opportunity for perhaps a smaller facility of 9 holes, and if that works out and if there are no problems, then going for a full 18 holes later on. But right now, those powers of discretion that have been granted to me, I'm not going to support this.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm somewhat with Rich in terms of, I think if it were a 9-hole course, I would support it right away. And certainly it could be expanded to be 18 if it becomes as popular as everyone thinks it's going to. But I think having a smaller facility would address a lot of the safety issues. I don't know the topography on 17, but that really concerned me in terms of, if you have a disc fly into the road. So I'm not going to support this. I would encourage them to come back with a modified plan that, has more setbacks from neighbors, more concern for the trails and the roads.
Thanks. Alan said his piece.
What I heard, and heard a lot about, was some things that probably the last gentleman that came up mentioned the fact that possibly we could work this out with the Park and Rec Commission. I really feel that's the avenue to go now.
I think that the risks associated with disc golf on this land are within reason for the activity. I think the risks, while there are risks, I think they're pretty minimal risks compared to other activities that could be used on the land, camping. I'm sure there are dangers of disc golf and all. I just think that the risks with this land, with the parking and the road, I think it's all well within reason. I think that the Park and Recreation Commission has the ultimate jurisdiction to decide the use of the land, whether it's 9 holes or 18 holes. I do think maybe if the course was a little bit smaller, maybe it could be safer, but I still think that an 18-hole course is within reasonable, is within reason. The risk is reasonable, I feel like.
Thank you.
I just have one question for George. Did this go before any of the planning committee, like fire, police, and?
Been reviewed by staff, it's been reviewed by the police, as you heard testified. It did not go to the planning committee, no.
No, I mean, Tuesday morning meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And?
So,
I definitely agree with all of you. And the way I'm shaking down on this is going to be in support, just because I haven't seen anything. Like I said, there is some safety concerns, but it's still, I think, falls within our regulations. So while we do have broad discretion, I'm not solely convinced that the safety issue is as prominent as, at least it wasn't proven tonight for me, and I hope that I'm right. I also hope that no matter how this goes, whether it's not approved, they work something out, or if it is approved, they also talk to the neighbors on Peddlers and Dennison especially, to see what they can do, because that's what it is, they can modify it a little bit, get trails moved a little more, so I hope that that would happen. So with that said, everybody gave their opinion. I'm going to call the vote. So all in favor? Aye. All opposed? No abstain. Motion carries. Okay. Next we have
And guys, we are still in the, we still have some stuff to do, so if you guys want to talk or anything, if you don't care about the rest of the stuff, just go out there, please. And close that door on your way out.
Take care, be good.
Did I say that nicely?
Yeah, it's gonna be a ghost
Okay.
town.
Yeah.
Just threw them all out, no problem.
Okay, so where are we now?
Subdivision.
Sorry, subdivision. Yeah. Is anybody here from Michael Prislow, Clapboard Hill?
Todd is.
Going once.
Todd.
Oh, okay.
What the hell are you reading that? What are you reading? Oh, right here.
No, old Mike passed away, and this is his two sons that are working on this. Good evening. So I'm here representing the Prislow heirs, and I'm sorry. Like I said, I was almost asleep. Todd Anderson, Anderson Engineering, from 1054 Boston Post Road here in Guilford. We have had many different reiterations of this three-lot subdivision going before the Wetlands Commission, and this is our final plan that was submitted to Wetlands and approved. And we have an open space area along this southern border of the property. This property existed prior to 1985, so we have our two R7 lots with the 200-foot squares to the north and south, and our one R8 lot here in the middle. We are proposing 21,912 square feet of open space, which is 6% of the property, and then a conservation easement along Old Scroggy Pond of 0.765 acres, which is 9.2% of the property. So we actually have 15.2% of the property, which essentially is open space. We originally did have a separate driveway for this lot coming out here due to concerns of sight lines and so forth. We redesigned the whole subdivision. We have one new proposed driveway coming in off of the south of the property, common to both lots 1 and 2, new construction lots. This is the existing house with an existing drive coming out here. It fits the regulations. It's, like I said, it's been approved by the Wetlands Commission, and if you care to see where theoretically a schematic plan of where the houses could go to utilize the views of the pond. Schematic plan is having one house in here and one house in here. Again, common driveway coming into both houses. We have the code compliant septic systems for all three lots. I believe there's probably a letter in the file from Dennis Johnson approving that. We do have a driveway within the 100-foot buffer from wetlands, which we got approval from wetlands to do that. Other than that, there's no construction within 100 feet of wetlands.
What was the discussion about how you were going to mark the conservation easement? I know one of the
conservation easement will be marked every 50 feet approximately by plaques on posts. That was part of the wetlands approval.
Yep.
And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
So, why don't you read the letter first before the question?
Got a couple of letters here. First one I'm going to do is from Jim Portley, the town engineer, dated today. Reason subdivision of the estate of Esther Preslow. The proposed three-lot subdivision is showing the existing driveway to be retained for the existing house and combined driveway for access to lots 2 and 3 works well on the land and minimizes impact of the driveway cuts to the roadway. It is recommended that if approved by the commission, that prior to issuance of a building permit for either lots 1 or 2, an engineered plan profile of the proposed common drive, including vegetation removal and grading changes to provide significant sight lines, be approved by the engineering department.
You want to do that long one?
Yeah, I got one long one here from Kevin. Dated today, December 20th, 2017, Michael Prislow, estate of Esther Prislow, 651 Clabberd Hill Road, Assessors Map 81, Lot 34A. The applicant is proposing to divide the 8.336 acre lot into 3 lots. The applicant has completed the checklist to guide low-impact development best management practices and is utilizing several of the recommended practices. The proposed stormwater management system is to consist of roof leaders discharging to infiltration galleries. The plan for the project have sedimentation and erosion control procedures that are in compliance with Section 273-97B, subsection 6 of the zoning regulations. The eastern side of the property abuts the Guilford Land Conservation Trust Old Scourgy Pond. As part of the proposed subdivision requirements, a conservation easement and dedicated open space set aside is provided. The conservation easement is intended to protect Old Scourgy Pond from the effects of the development. A similar conservation easement was placed on the Hidden Meadow subdivision located on the opposite side of the pond. The dedicated open space provides a connection from the town's East River Preserve to the dedicated open space properties maintained by the Guilford Land Conservation Trust. The Guilford Inland Wetlands Commission at its December 13, 2017 meeting voted to refer favorably to the Planning and Zoning Commission the subdivision shown map titled Record Subdivision Map Property of the Estate of Esther D. Prislow, 651 Guilford, Connecticut, prepared by Anderson Engineering and Surveying Associates, 1054 Boston Post Road, Guilford, Connecticut, dated October 11, 2017, and revised on December 6, 2017, with the condition that a conservation easement be approved along the pond, which would be marked at approximately 50-foot intervals at turning points. Recommendations for conditions of approval. 1, the Town of Guilford Zoning Enforcement Officer should be notified to inspect the sedimentation and erosion control measures prior to site work. Soil stockpiles should be contained by silt fencing and/or hay bales. Soil erosion and sedimentation controls measures shall be maintained until vegetation is established or suitable material is installed to the satisfaction of the zoning enforcement officer. 2, in order to prevent construction in the conservation easement area, I recommend the following conditions of approval. A, the language of the conservation easement shall be in accordance with the standard conservation easement document of the Town of Guilford, with the additional note allowing for view window from the house to the pond. The terms of the conservation easement shall be made a restrictive covenant running with the land binding on the successors and assigns. If a conservation easement is not approved by a town meeting, the applicant shall file a deed restriction with similar language. No building permit shall be issued and no site work to be conducted until the conservation easement has been filed in the town land records and the subdivision has been properly marked with iron pins and signage at approximately 50-foot intervals and turning points. The open space to be dedicated to the Land Conservation Trust. as noted in Section 272-24 of the subdivision regulations. A digitalized copy of the final subdivision plan be submitted to the commission in PDF format showing all property lines.
Make sense? Yes. You knew all of that.
Do you have this?
I don't have that.
Maybe. Before it goes flowing out of my mind.
Ready? Yeah. Go for it.
You can forget that first condition. Because that's included in Kevin's.
Okay. Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a subdivision application for Michael Prizzo, 651 Clapboard Hill Road, map 81, lot 34A, shown on record subdivision map, property of estate of Esther D. Prizzo, dated October 11, 2017, revised to December 6, 2017, by Anderson Engineering and Surveying Associates, and site development plan, property of estate of Esther D. Prizzo, dated October 11, 2017, revised to December 6, 2017, by Anderson Engineering Surveying Associates. This application is approved with the following conditions. Those conditions as noted by Kevin McGee in his letter.
Also, Jim Portman's recommended condition.
And Jim Portley's recommended conditions. This application is approved based upon a finding that it conforms with the zoning and subdivision codes of the town.
Second.
Any discussion? Straightforward. Good presentation. You good over there, Rich?
I'm good.
All right. Call the vote. All
Aye.
in favor? Okay, thank you.
Very much.
We are on to special permits for applications to be received. I got John Redding at 6 Sleepy Hollow, map 89, lot 100-8, zone R7, special permit for a 936 square foot barn, 26 by 36 by 25, 273-19. First public hearing on 2/7, continue to 2/17 for the mandatory second public hearing.
Okay. Feel free, yeah,
Let's receive it.
Yeah, we're good to receive it?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
I don't think so.
Feel free, yacht club?
10 days in between, right? February is a short month.
Hold on.
There's still 2 weeks between Wednesdays,
So-
We got the 7th and the 21st.
Okay.
So let me redo that to continue to 2/21/18. Re-second? Thank you. Guilford Yacht Club, 379 Whitfield Street, map 28, lot 11, zone MR-1, special permit, coastal area management site plan. On land placement and removal of dredged soil, request 5-year permit for article, what is that? 8, Article 8, I gotta get my numbers down. Earth removal operations, 273-91, 273-19.
First public hearing.
Article 9, first public hearing on 2/7/18, continued to 2/21/18 for a mandatory second public hearing.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Mandatory referral. I know, Rich, you love these.
I don't understand this one. We don't have any real information on this.
The town of Guilford and the Board of Education have agreed to enter into an energy performance contract with Johnson Controls Incorporated, a number of energy-related projects for a total cost of $9,526,355 will be completed on the Board of Education side as well as some of the town side through a lease purchase agreement. The energy saving realized from these projects over the 20-year life of the agreement will be used to pay for the cost incurred.
About 30 or 40 different items that are part of this effort, and this is a Section 8-24 referral as required under Connecticut law. The town will be bonding these improvements, and according to the lawyers over in the Board of Selectmen office, this requires an 8-24 referral. None of these things require zoning approval. These
We're
are-
just referring.
You're just saying that you think these things are consistent with the town's plan of conservation and development.
We've only just seen this within the last 30 seconds, though.
If you want to table it, that's obviously something that's within your authority.
Well, we'll leave that up to the other folks, but I don't know anything about this, and I'm not even sure what we're saying. Like, how could this not be in keeping with our plan of conservation and development, you know?
Correct, that's right.
and I'm sure that the town got the best deal they could.
They usually do.
I know they've been meeting with the Board of Finance and the Board of Ed. They've been having joint meetings on this.
Most of these projects support that,
Right.
From our referral, where does it then go? It goes to,
It's been referred to you from the Board of Selectmen.
So they're obviously okay with it.
They're not asking you to
Confirm that this is a good deal for the town, or that it's worth spending this money. They're asking you to certify that it's consistent with the town's plan of conservation and development. That's the best explanation that I have for what an 8-24 referral actually is.
They're not asking, Johnson Controls isn't asking for portable trailers or anything like that.
If any of these
it's
things
nice if they
require
actually explain it a little as opposed to just throwing a number at us.
Well, there is, yes, I mean, it's true that you've only seen this for the first time. There is a lengthy description of these various activities. What are we getting for the money?
Can you break it down a little bit?
The choice is either we say, let's table it
Yes.
so we can look at this, or
Should we have a better explanation?
Do you all need a better explanation, or you think you're okay with the mandatory referral?
I don't know anything about it. I don't know what any of it is, and I don't even have a clue if it is part of our, consistent with our plan of conservation.
So let's table it to the 2/7 meeting, and we'll, you guys,
we can probably
Do
Check
it
it.
in January. We can do it at the 1-3 if we can get the.
oh, that's right, I forgot, we have those meetings, yeah. We'll do it at the next, what is it, 1/3?
But can we
So
get a
it's-
copy of that email to us so we can actually read
Okay.
it? And I hate to just vote yes, just because,
They told us to?
well, yeah, I mean, I would assume they would want us to know what we're doing. If I were them, I wouldn't want us to just say yes.
I would agree.
Well, in all fairness, the facilities director for the Board of Education, Cliff Gurnham, asked me today whether he thought that his presence at this meeting was necessary, and I said no.
That's okay.
So it's my fault.
But no, it probably won't be once we actually get to read it and digest it.
Come back
So-
in 2 weeks.
Yeah, table it for the 1/3 meeting, please. Do we have to vote on that?
Motion to table, to the 1-3 meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Where we at, I'm sorry.
I think we're done.
Mr. Chairman,
That's done.
I've reviewed the minutes and you're correct substantially.
Everybody okay with that? Okay, second? What, George?
Minutes. I passed out.
All in favor?
You all have an invitation to the annual dinner, Regional Planning Agency.
They weren't in our package.
We do this, I passed it out earlier this evening.
Everyone got it. Where is it this year?
It's at the Graduate Club.
Orange?
I had about 6 or 8 copies of it. It was supposed to be circulating around. It's probably buried in somebody's debt pile.
You know who always goes is Josh always goes, so make sure he gets.
You're all invited. It's Thursday, January 11th, 6 p.m., the Graduate Club. The South Central Regional Plan will be discussed. If you want to go, let Lisa know by Friday. The town pays for it. Everybody hear that? We pay for it.
Town pays for it. So let's keep it limited to the number of people that go.
Yeah, we usually have a good turnout of people. It's mostly a social event. You'll meet, but
Other planners and zoners. I won't be able to attend.
anybody who wants to attend, call Lisa by Friday.
Thank you. And Lisa, you'll throw out a little email just to let everybody.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, give your speech.
Mr. Chairman,
Since there is nothing.
Here we
in
go.
as much as there's nothing, no further business before this commission, I make a motion, we close the meeting.
Second. Somebody? Who seconded?
I did.
Okay, you guys have a wonderful Christmas and Hanukkah and everything else.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Nice work.